las calles en el centro de la ciudad. Cara me quiere ver, nadie me quiere ayudar. Hambre, tengo frío y no sé qué hacer. Gobierno maldito me la va a deber. Porque yo soy indio, no debo de saberlo. Pasa ya mi tierra, no debe de suceder. Milicia del masacre, es injusto que no ven. A mi pobre gente que no se lo merece.
We are live. Back again.
Made it. Another week.
Hello and welcome to Itz Happenin show, community grassroots media for the people by the people. I'm Jose Gloria.
And I'm Dylan Thompson. We are your hosts tonight. Well, I am one of your co-hosts temporarily. As far as we know, but go ahead.
Interim co-host Dylan Thompson. It's happening as a movement of the heart and of the mind. It's the energy of the universe that creates waves inside us and all around us, which allows us to activate, motivate, then elevate vibrationally and intellectually towards love, truth, justice, and wisdom. It's happening in every which way.
It's Happenin is a culture of empowerment. It's people having the right to exist and participate as equals. It's a dream of what the world could be. The future we want is only possible if we make it happen. So stand up, get informed, and fight back.
Fight back. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with us, so we thank you because of you.
It's happening.
It's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear you when I'm screaming like that, so I just assume by your body movements that in time.
Yeah. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Special show.
Special show. Yeah, we're gonna talk in just a second with His Excellency.
Yes, the seditious one.
Yeah, man. So it's gonna be a great show today. We're gonna, of course, talk about all the things happening in the world right now, and we're gonna talk about his new book coming out. So, but man, so much things happening in the world right now. Dylan, are you?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
it's
that's an understatement of the year, right?
Big time. Yeah, I mean, I haven't even gone out to protest yet. I should. I feel like I think it's great that this is a lot of people's moment to get engaged and get on the street and cause hell. And definitely want to go and see if there are any GAs happening. And maybe I can show someone how to take minutes and facilitate a meeting. I don't know. I mean, that's all I feel like I could do going anywhere, you know.
Show them the hand signals.
Yeah, I just want to go there and be like, I can tell you a bunch about, like, you know, like there's a bunch of, I mean, you know all these people, and there's people, well, far more educated than I am on the topic of the history of our police department. But I mean, I got some things to share, and there's so many of our activist friends who have all these bits and pieces of knowledge, you know, and about the fight that's been going on, and to tell it to the next generation, and to tell them the things we learned, and to tell them our pitfalls. I mean, I feel like people should get out there, and maybe I'm not going to be having the same role as some of the other protesters, but you know, everyone has their place. So.
Right. I definitely see the energy of the young people, and as we had, you know, I had a great show last week. With Naui and Gabby and the two young folks. So it was, you know, very much the moment, and people are seizing it, and we're seeing some incredible change happening, like really fast. And start thinking about all the things that didn't work with Occupy, 10 years ago almost, and learning from the mistakes, but very much understanding that organic movements as these that surge, just kind of tend to just spring up, and in that moment people take leadership, and it might be sloppy and not the most organized, but it's that's how it is. You kind of learn as you go. I mean, that's how I did. And but at the same time, as you mentioned, there are so many people in the community that I was able to get mentored and supported, in the different things that we were doing. So I think it's very much learn as you go type of thing, this movement building, grassroots stuff. But man, I mean, last night, right? 20,000 people in Hollywood. Just, the aerial pictures are just crazy, just seeing all those people, just supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. So we're going to talk about that with Matt, but I did want to bring up one thing that recently came out, and it's kind of gone viral. And it's this video of this is our recurring segment. It was called Becky's Corner, but now we're changing it to Karen's Corner. Karen's Corner.
Karen's Corner.
Yeah, so there has been yet another incident in the long line of white women, Karens, as they're unlovingly referred to as. So in the most recent example, situation was this situation in Phoenix, Arizona, where this Hispanic woman, Karina Rodriguez, who apparently is an educator, was got into an argument with this woman about, getting help first or not. I'm not really sure what the argument was, but there was somebody recording it, and it ended with like, well, you should go back to Mexico. And the girl was like, you should go back to wherever you came from. I was born in America, B. Yeah. So yeah, and then at the end, like, I think she kind of like pushed her, or like touched her, and like the Hispanic woman just went, wow.
Just slapped her.
What did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap. It's like, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it felt very satisfying, and I felt guilty about feeling satisfied. But
well, I don't know if you even should, though, considering the circumstances. I mean, if someone is assaulting you, I mean, you have a reason. I mean, the force she took to prevent the encounter was a slap to the face. I mean, she's not like seriously injuring this person, but she's defending herself. And I mean, I think a lot of people will see that and be like, well, yeah, don't be grabbing people if you don't get slapped. They're just defending themselves. So
right. But yeah, I mean, the woman was saying, like,
no guilt here. Stood
my ground, damn it. Like, yeah, make racist afraid again. Hashtag. So yeah, there is a large conversation that is happening around defunding the police, about what this moment can bring us as far as transformative, revolutionary change, and the role of young people and the role of Black people and people of color in this time, and the ways that the systemic racism is engaged on the local level and also on the national level. And we've learned recently about Minneapolis City Council, the majority of them wanting to dismantle the police department, and kind of start from scratch and figure things out and create a better culture. And also on the national level, today the House Democrats put forward a proposal that includes various things like outlawing chokeholds, mandating that people's records be scrutinized before they get hired, and other such measures, but not to the extent of defunding the police, as many people are calling for. So but it cannot be highlighted enough how much this movement has pushed the conversation forward in just an incredibly fast way, and in ways that it's really manifested itself into policies. And significant changes with where we haven't, many people that have been fighting for these things have not been able to do that for a long time.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I'll poo-poo on this a bit, just that this is the start, the beginning of the beginning in a way. Like, and when they're saying that they're going to dismantle the city's police department in Minneapolis, seek the nuance here, because when you see some of their statements from the council members, are saying, yeah, it couldn't be a short-term thing. They'd think about it long-term in the future, being able to have a society that didn't have a police department. So a lot of this is lip service, considering the circumstances. These are the city council members in the city where the incident that sparked this international outrage occurred. So they're a lip service to 10,000%. And so, but I'm saying it's good though. Keep pushing these guys and get some real implementation goals done here, because it's good to hear that they'll dismantle the police, but once they give you the plan to show you how much of the budget they're moving over, what timeline, like what responsibilities will the new public safety agency have, like we need these details, and this is the start of an opportunity to do that. And the other part is with regard to chokeholds and stuff, that's good. I mean, we should ban these practices when they lead to these horrible outcomes. But the problem is in New York, they had already that's already like not allowed in their policy for many years. But it didn't prevent any officers from using it against Eric Garner, and they continue to use it to this day, and with almost no punishment. So it's also, yeah, you can outlaw things, but where's really the enforcement? Where's the teeth? So okay, I'm
correct. No, it's but still, like, even to have gotten this far, it is definitely something that we would have not seen happen in any council anytime soon.
Correct.
And I'll just say that last night, John Oliver, last week tonight, had a really powerful segment that really outlined the various ways. And, he's done shows before around police departments and the corruption and the police brutality and the lack of accountability. And the hard enforcement that is pushed in the culture of policing. Like, these are the enemy combatants. You must always assume that they're like gonna have a gun and gonna try to shoot you, and you should not be scared of that. To shoot first and ask questions later, and never feel guilty about that. So in that he talked about that a few years ago when he first did a segment on police departments. He talked about it again yesterday, and he also talked about other examples like in New Jersey where they did in fact dismantle the police, brought it up from scratch, and so that is an option for people, for cities around the country to figure out a new approach to this policing situation. So the conversation is ongoing, and
Indeed.
so I don't think they're and different cities are going to figure out how it's going to look like on the local level. But I want to go ahead and bring onto this conversation a good friend of ours, longtime friend of the show. I think he's the one that's been on the most out of anyone. He is His Excellency, the one and only poet, author, podcaster now, and all-around badass, Matt Sedillo. Welcome to the show, Matt Sedillo.
Hello.
Yes,
welcome, seditious one.
This is the most COVID moment I've had so far. I'm actually in the other room. Earlier we were going to be face-to-face, but there was an echo. So
in the other room on Zoom. Just holding your hand up to the door just to feel the warmth of Jose on the other side. Sad. Sad.
And I'll have him like sit next to me, and I'll be like, "Hey, man."
we'll CGI it in. You can hug via Zoom.
Matt, so you are congratulations on your new book,
Thank you.
Mowing Leaves of Grass. I copped a copy. You should too. And let me read just one of these things from folks that were, that are talking about you here on the back of the book. It says, from Greg Palast, author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy and recipient of the George Orwell Courage in Journalism Award, says of you, good sir, Matt Sedillo is stone cold the best political poet in America. Every wildly inventive line is a snap of a switchblade. Forget the pretentious toffs who poetize for the NPR crowd. Sedillo is vengeance, the one we've been waiting for. Sting.
Ow.
Indeed.
Man.
So, we got Roxanne Dumbrot Ortiz and Paul Ortiz, and a lot of folks that can corroborate with that. So before we get into the book, Matt, I want to talk about recently what you've been doing as far as venturing into my lane, our lane. How dare you?
How dare you?
I'm gonna start writing too. That's it. But how has that been going, man? I've seen you've been interviewing all sorts of incredible people that you've met on your journey.
Yeah, I think I've at this point of I know I have over 200 hours of footage of interviews with people collected in less than a month. In around a month's time, I had about 200 hours worth of interviews. I work very hard. Kind of, why you should know that, Jose. And you want to
hardest working man in poet business, Matt Sedillo.
Yeah. So anything I do, I throw myself into. So I work really hard to get all those interviews down. I got Luis Rodriguez, I got Luis Jurea, I got Norma Cantu, I got Margaret Kimberly, the author of Presidential. I got Luis Alfaro. I got some really notable people in there. I got some really, really notable people. Whitaker. Thinking I got Kim Schuck, the current poet laureate of San Francisco. Had Edward, the owner proprietor of Flower Song. I have all kinds of people on there. But I've also had like physicists, and I've had truck drivers. I've had a number of people that you wouldn't normally think, just academics and poets. I've had a number of people that are kind of cross section people I've known throughout the years. Come on and just talk about it's kind of a highlight show. So talk about I try to at the beginning talk about what they did before they got known for whatever it is they're doing. Then kind of the high points of their career thus far, and then talk about what's on the horizon, what's next, what's coming up. So that's kind of the format. So no matter who they are, it tries to follow that basic formula.
Yeah, and have you found it difficult to secure these guests, or like how do you reach out to people?
I just ask them if they want to go on, and it's easier once others have done it. So like once I get a few people to do it, then it becomes easier to get more people to do it.
Right.
And people volunteer. I got Tim Hernandez. It wasn't so much surprising they got Luis Rodriguez on there because I've known him for so long and he kind of trusts me, and we've been working together for a long time. But it was getting people like Tim Z Hernandez. That was a little more like, I don't know him that well. So like that was getting people like that who've also achieved a lot of things but don't know me that well. Those are the people that were more like. But then having seen some of the other people that came on, they were willing and eager to do it. So that was kind of my experience with that. It was difficult. The most difficult people have been the people who I feel like are very insecure and don't like me, and so those people will continue to suffer for their small-mindedness vis-a-vis me.
Right. Yeah, you need them on. Get them on an interview.
I want to say that the story of my success is also the story of many small failures. The failures of small-minded people to get with the program. And, when I asked them to do something, like, there's going to be a win-win. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And what's your platform? If some of our audience wants to go and, change.
Oh, it's just on my Facebook page. And it's just, they're basically interviews that are 40 minutes to an hour. I don't talk about it too much, but yeah, I am working with the University of Florida on this. So these are going to be archived forever. And so they're going to be archived, working with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. They're going to be part of a larger archive that, I'd probably end up calling it like the COVID talks or something like that people will study, like, so long as there is a University of Florida, they'll be available there to be studied, and just kind of hear what the people of, 2020 were like. So when we're talking about like people, it's like a time capsule. People will study it, 100 years from now.
Yeah.
So long as there still is a University of Florida.
Right. Indeed. And,
if the ocean hasn't swallowed it.
Yeah, we'll shoot this out in a satellite for when the sun explodes. We'll probably want to get it into a different galaxy for safekeeping. But this is the silver lining of COVID for you, right? Because I know you're definitely a go-getter, and you definitely prior to the COVID, I imagine you're traveling across to different campuses and different venues to do performances and workshops. Is this just part of how you've leveraged that work into COVID times?
Well, the book was coming out. When the book was going to come out, that was going to, I had already booked not just colleges, which is my primary income, but like I had also booked like bookstores. and I had scheduled appearances at bookstores, something I've never really done before. But the book, it's the press is behind it. The press is getting press, and if you do a Google search, it'll show up in a cool way that makes it look like a legitimate book. And I guess if it looks like a legitimate book, it is a legitimate book. So it's a legitimate book. So it's a different level of just a different level of professionalism and legitimacy that this book has come out with. So that's enabled me to book bookstores and approach them as like, I'm an author. So let me do a reading. And so I booked a number of these, and those are all canceled, gone, and just
Right.
That's it. So it is what it is. But I'll move on from that. That's fine. Move on from that, and I was kind of shook after I lost that, but also after losing the college shows, that was the thing that really left me shook. Was that I couldn't really maintain. That was pretty devastating. Because that was my my primary source of income. But after a few days, I'm like, okay, I need to figure something out. And so I started doing the interviews. Because I gave myself such a harsh work schedule to finish up on some manuscripts. I'm like, I'm gonna take this time to do manuscripts. So, but then I started doing the interviews as a way to kind of break the monotony of just being, surrounded by myself, my own thoughts. And then, like anything, I happened to me, and I became very obsessive with getting as many interviews done as possible. I think for a while I was averaging about 9 a day. And then seriously, I was doing like about 9 a day. For
it was like I had to turn off my notifications from Matt Sedillo. I was like, this is just too much.
yeah. And I maxed out. The one day I maxed out was at 12. One day I did 12.
That's crazy, man. Because I almost canceled this show. I was this close to being like, no. Yeah. Go ahead.
Then I came with the idea that I needed to do 24 because I needed to figure out how I could line that up and be able to stay awake the whole time. But I needed to do 24 because the way I am, I don't just compete with the living. I compete with the dead and the unborn. Right. So that's like my mentality. Right. So I'm like, well, maybe someone will come along later that can match 24 1-hour interviews in a day, but no one can ever surpass them. Right. So that was like my mentality. But then it became harder to line people up because everyone I got was I had already gotten a lot of people that were very eager. And then the people that were less eager, I don't know. It's gotten harder to maintain 9 a day. I'm still interested in doing them here and there. Dylan, you want to do one?
Holy shit! Oh yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, cool. So,
it's proving to be easier to get you on the shows than it was for me to get on that show. I mean,
that was an episode unto itself. We could actually do an episode about getting Jose on. And the story of Jose coming on.
Like that, hey, but buddy, I thought we were friends. Can I get on?
Yeah.
Can the brother get on?
Yeah. No, this is kind of like the Rashomon. There's many interpretations of what happened.
He's like, all right, fine, I got an opening. Can you do it now? I was like, no, I just want to be on in general, not right now.
I got a slot at 3 a.m.
I got to do my makeup. No, this.
Yeah.
Matt was doing them at 9 in the morning and at midnight and stuff. He was on a rampage. He was doing Joe Rogan numbers for sure.
Yeah. So I wanted to get him on, but he was like, oh no, I need to go do my hair or something like that. And I'm like, cool, we'll arrange it. And then I was just on a rampage getting a bunch of other people, and then he saw someone come on the show that he felt he was at least of the quality that they're of, and we won't name this person. And he was like, this is unjust, this is unfair, I don't understand why. It was very existential and emotional, and so we got him on. So that's the story of that. And then
I'm humbled and honored, good sir. No, it was
the door was always open. It just wasn't there just wasn't a red carpet leading back to yours. And I just didn't. The door was always open. I just didn't have a limo
pick you up
to arrive. Yeah.
Seriously, Matt, this person before me, what's going on? I'm just kidding.
I've changed.
Stop. Because people will go back and look at who was before you. It was not the person directly preceding. There was other people in between.
No. I
I
can't.
don't want people trying to figure out who this was.
No. It was, I really enjoyed those conversations. You just let people talk, and folks to share who they were. I got a chance to share. Doing this show, I express my viewpoints and stuff, but maybe a lot of people don't know my story, my history, how I got involved into this here stuff. But yeah, so you're saying like, yeah, probably gonna wind it down. Want to focus more.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna wind it down, and maybe later at some time might revisit doing these.
Mhm.
What I like about doing the interviews is I think I got better at it over time.
Yeah.
And it was really just a question of like trying to ask informed questions and then get out of the way. So I'm really surprised at the people that I know that have been doing this for a long time that are really terrible at it. And because when I say they're terrible at it, it's really just they talk too much. It's just really not that difficult not to talk that much. Like ask a question, let the other person talk, and then ask more questions. Like the difficulty.
Well, you know what, Matt? I have an opinion on that, and you know what?
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, tell me.
No.
So the difficult thing.
Attacked right now, but go ahead.
You know what the real difficult thing is sometimes I would interview professors, and professors are used to giving lectures. So when I ask you a question, I need you to talk for about 7 minutes maybe, and then I'll like jump back in with an informed question based on what you said for the past 5 to 7 minutes, right? To expand upon something. And then I'm looking at the time, I'm like, okay, we need to spend about 20 minutes talking about this person's backstory before they got like into the swing of things. And then I'm gonna spend the next like 30 minutes talking about their high points and the last 10 minutes talking about their future projects. So I have that in mind already, right? And so I'm watching the clock thinking about this. But then when you ask a professor a question, they might ramble on for like 25 minutes and tell you this entire thing. And I was like, oh crap. And then I've had other people on. The most notable example was this guy George Cicarello Marr, who's a professor. He's not just a professor; he's kind of like a well-known, organizer, activist. Like a truth to power type guy, right? So he's used to going on television, right? Because he's always getting in fights and stuff like that. And he's like fighting the good fight, freedom fighter, right? Freedom fighter thinker guy. So he goes on television. And he's used to giving you these amazing answers in 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So I'll ask him these questions, and he's done in 30 seconds. And I'm I'm getting ready, I'm thinking I can take a break. I'm like going to do some research, find some better questions. And this guy's already done. And I'm like, oh shit. So I got to keep asking questions way before I'm ready to. So that was another thing I had to adjust to. People who had been used to being interviewed and being used to only having a small time to speak, and getting the thing out there really quick, really good, and there was nothing to expand upon. They said everything they wanted to say, no wasted words, and it was just perfect. And so that means that I have to have, instead of having let's say 15 questions, I'm going to have 45 to 50 questions. Mm-hmm. And so finding that out was oh no. So that kind of those were interesting challenges.
Yeah. It's definitely Dylan and I can attest to this. When we first were doing this, nervous and kind of shy, and trying to figure out our angle, but yeah, I think practice makes perfect, and you kind of get a little swing of things, and and I know I can think of shows and with people that just went on long rants, and I'm just like, this. It's supposed to be more of a kind of a conversation where you speak for 5-7 minutes, maybe 10 tops, but if you go past that, I'm just kind of okay. So but I think it's really an important vehicle, this podcasting and interviewing thing. I was glad to hear and see that you jumped into it and really full on, all out. And the people, the conversations that we were having, were probably conversations and topics that perhaps people would not have been able to hear and learn about had not this COVID-19 happened. So
that's absolutely true. I didn't have a captive audience necessarily, but what I had was a captive interview base. What the hell else you got better to do?
Yeah,
to get
right.
interviewed by me, unless you do have something better to do. And that was like difficult to arrange. But for the most part, a lot of people have had their lives on pause. And then once they see like the number of really cool people, I mean, I had Tony Diaz, the guy from, Libro Traficante. I had him on. You know what I mean? Like I had Devorah Major, former pro lawyer of San Francisco. I had, I just had a number of people who accomplished a number of things in literature or in academia, that were just really just, like I couldn't believe it. And here they were, and so that's been great. It's been great. I mean, it kind of seems like it's winding down a little bit, but tomorrow I'm interviewing, I think, Devin Pena, who's a professor at the University of Washington for many years, heading the Chicano Studies Department. So like that'll be cool. I mean, so there's still a number of people that are still coming on, still coming around.
Yeah.
But doing 9 a day, 12 a day, all that kind of stuff, I really don't see it happening again. I feel like I don't see myself doing that.
Yeah, it's more of a proof of concept for yourself.
Well, I also like anytime I have like anytime I can do a public feat of strength, I try to. No, because I got a lot of haters and like people like who are like, why did Matt get to do this? Why is Matt getting invited to do that? And like, who does Matt think he is? And I got people in the city of Los Angeles who talk about what they think I think about myself. It's not even based on anything I said. Like they're literally out there worried about what they think I think about myself. It's ridiculous. And so like, anyway, I got a lot of haters. So like, for me to like display my work ethic, like this is the reason why I went to Cuba. This is the reason why I went to Cambridge. You see how hard I'm working now? That's how hard generally speaking, how hard I work. You know what I mean? Like, pressuring myself to do 9, 12 interviews a day, or 9 to 10 interviews a day, or 9, only did 12 once, but like pressuring myself to do that many interviews, that was pretty stressful. That was kind of stressful, but like that was nowhere near as stressful as last summer when I put on the Aslan show, made the Cuba documentary, and also was just booking colleges. I mean, all three of those things at the same time, as well as finishing up the manuscript for Mowing Leaves of Grass. That was the most stressed I've ever been. I got a point in time where I was like, I couldn't speak properly for a minute. I like my speech was getting slurred because my brain was just so overwhelmed with the amount of work I was doing. That's how hard I work.
Yeah,
and that's the answer.
Damn, and that's bottom line.
Yeah, Matt's fucking brain started malfunctioning. That's how hard he fucking worked.
Thank you for saying that, Matt, because when you like do poetry, that's what my brain feels like. Like it's like it's overwhelmed with like dates and words, and we were talking about that earlier. But Matt, I want to get your thoughts on the protests, and what's been happening. I mean, you're very well read, a hood academic of sorts, and you have a very good historical context about the struggle of white supremacy, of Black and brown people under oppression here, but abroad and everywhere, and also like the rises and falls of movements throughout So I'd love to hear your take on what's happening right now.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a broad question, but generally speaking, I mean, obviously in favor of it, but I think that, I mean, when we look at what happened to George Floyd, you have to put it in the context of the historical trajectory, right? And when people usually do that, they'll talk about like slavery to Jim Crow to the prison industrial complex. But one thing they really tend to leave out is that what we're looking at is a history of oppression that is not necessarily rooted just in the South. It's rooted really particularly, specifically in the Great Migration out of the South and into the North, and what happened to people then, how they were policed when they moved into Chicago, when they moved into huge waves of migration into Chicago, into Detroit, into like this kind of industrial landscape, right? And how they were like locked out of industry, how they were locked out of just different segments of society, just different segments of like the workforce and just other elements of just like the public life, right? And how redlining and all kinds of other kinds of forms of harassment and terror that Black people experienced during that period. So like when you look at like what happened to George Floyd, that's part of that history. That's part of that trajectory. Of course, yes, it is part of a broader history of Africans in the Western Hemisphere, being brought in, being enslaved, and generations of oppression keeping the United States from, you know, slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration. That's of course true, but there's a specific thing there with the migrations you got to really look at, and how that happened when they moved to cities that were not part of, you know, that are not part of the South where slavery took place. And there's also slavery in New England as well that people don't talk about. That was actually or not enough people are aware of. I shouldn't say people don't talk about it. I mean, I know about it because people talk about it. But there's a long history too of slavery in New York and slavery in Boston, Philadelphia, that people don't is not as often discussed. But primarily, what we're talking about is chattel slavery in the American South. But when we look at what happened to George Floyd, when we look at what happened to Freddie Gray, when we look at what's happening to all these different people that happen in these major urban centers, in part of what's called the North, it's really rooted most specifically and most clearly in that history, right? And so also the rebellions that took place afterwards are also rooted in those histories and that thing. So when you think about that, you got to like put it in the historical timeline of Watts, of Detroit, later on, 92, here in Los Angeles, and then, on to later on, obviously, Ferguson, Baltimore, most recent episodes. What's different, though, is that this has taken on a much, much, much broader life than Ferguson or Baltimore did in terms of the amount of people involved, in terms of people who aren't Black who got involved, in terms of all these kinds of things. The activity around this is obviously on a global scale. It's just much wider. I mean, I saw people in New Zealand doing the haka. I mean, so that was kind of it's really taken on an international scale. Here in Los Angeles, of course, you see a lot of people getting involved, a lot of Raza, a lot of Chicanos, a lot of Central Americans, a lot of people, just brown people, getting involved. And in many ways, there's this big debate as to whether or not, are they bringing too much of their own struggle to it? Should this be, solely focused on the issue of police brutality and terror towards Black people? And that's kind of a debate that's going on. Yeah. What's not debatable is that they are bringing their own struggle to it. They are bringing their own grievances. They are bringing their own anger about the issues they face in the world today. That is definitely happening. And of course that's happening. If you look at the population demographics of Los Angeles, that is what it's going to look like. Just in fact, if you look at the population demographics in New Zealand, then you're going to get the haka, right? So over here, you're going to get people saying, defund the police, Black Lives Matter, abolish ICE, right? You're going to see a sign that says those things, and that you're more likely to see in Los Angeles than somewhere else, because that's the population, and those are the issues they face, and they're going to bring their anger, their grievances against, the white supremacy in the U.S. state to the struggle. That's what's going to happen. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's what's going to happen. Like, there's no stopping it. That's what's going to happen. This is in 92. I think something like 60% of the arrests in 92. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I know it's over 50%. 60% of the arrests were Latino. Because, I mean, like, if you look at the population of Los Angeles in 1992, that's how it's going to look. I mean, I don't know what the arrests are now, but I imagine it's even more overwhelming. That's so that's my broad take on that. I don't know if there's more specific questions.
Well, I wanted to ask specifically about because I'm wondering, like, why this, why this in particular, like, sparked, such an international kind of movement. I mean, there have been Philando Castile and Breonna, I forgot her last name, Breonna Taylor, and countless other folks that have. So it's just like, and it was like a series of this. It's like, we would think that back in the 90s when Rodney King, had that happen to him and it was videotaped, like, that would have been enough to change the culture of police departments and policing in America, but it didn't. And no, in fact, what it turned out to be is, like, we needed dozens and dozens and dozens of Black and brown people being recorded in their last moments by the police department. But then this one in particular set it off, but under the context of COVID-19, people being trapped in their homes for like 2-3 months, like, they're aching to get out. But
I think that could explain a lot of why it went international, because, I mean, it's a global pandemic, so people in other places wanted to participate in something, and this seems like something they can do. I mean, that might explain some of it.
Yeah,
Here
no,
on the national scene, I don't know. I mean, that video was so graphic and so gruesome. If you look at like the catalyst towards so many things that have ever happened throughout world history, it's usually been something that was just an insult upon injury that set things off. So if you look at like, I don't know, some people would trace like the beginning of the Mexican Revolution to the Cananea mines, and the Arizona Rangers coming in and killing people, right? And the insult, you know, there have been strikes being broken all throughout, Mexico for that time period. You know, so the 1880s to the early 1900s. That had been going on for a while, but like the idea that the Arizona Rangers would come in and do that, that's just like shocking. Bloody Sunday in Russia. Example after example, these things that were just like really like not just terrible, not just oppressive, but just really, really in your face, really over the top. That tend to set people in motion. And so I think, like if you look at the case of Mike Brown, that was so big. It was the fact that they left him like lying there dead for hours, right? That was, something that was just above and beyond, right? And if you look at the case with George Floyd, you see him, being killed in such a brutal manner, in broad daylight in front of everybody. I mean, it's so stark, it's so brutal, and death is death. I mean, you kill somebody like gently, or you kill them, horribly like that. Death is death, and it's the worst thing you can do to someone is murder them. But it's so brutal. It's so like there's nothing. There's nothing that can be said. It's so brutal. It's so barbaric. It's so vicious. It's so ruthless. It's just so jarring. That I think that's why. I don't think it's just like, well, why this time? I mean, I think the answer is that it was because of how jarring the visuals really were.
Yeah, Matt, I'd agree.
I saw the video once and I couldn't watch it again. I mean, I saw it once, but it's a horrific thing to see, and I don't think I even got to the end. I think I stopped. I couldn't watch it, and I haven't attempted to since. But it's so incredibly brutal that I think that's that is why. I mean, the answer, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's part of the explanation. I mean, that was like a 9-minute sustained video, I believe, from multiple angles. And I mean, there's like no even like the most brainwashed person will watch that, and there's no plausible deniability about that. It is murder if you saw it. You know what I mean? So I think you're definitely right. But maybe we can hit on maybe what we think of some of the other factors. I mean, like, considering that it's a largely youth-led movement, and I mean, is that some kind of powder keg COVID plus youth not being able to do anything equals social unrest? You know what I mean? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think that would explain a lot of the international aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not from the United States, and you're not experiencing these particular things, and you don't live in a society that's completely like the United States, or so similar to the United States in terms of have like a large black population that's being oppressed, that got people involved in just all over the world. I mean, I think that might explain some of it, that people, they wanted to participate in this global thing. But again, like I said earlier, like, people around the world, they acknowledge where it started, but oftentimes they're bringing their own grievances to the issues. They're bringing their own historical trajectories,
and also their own battles,
with
the issue. So I wanted to ask you in particular about the defunding the police movement. Like, I mean, did you see that as something that like could have gotten legs behind it, or as
well, I mean, I don't know any more than I do you. I mean, I'm not an expert in that. I know I've read a few articles.
But you do know the history of policing in this,
right? Sure. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that like Dylan raised a really good point about the fact that it's just kind of like a lot of it's toothless language. A lot of it's just about how in the future we're going to do this, in the future we're going to do that. Obviously, it's a completely different topic, and it's completely different. The stakes are very different. But you can like think about the way a lot of these cities talk about the fight for 15. Like, oh, we're going to have a 15-minute wage, in the by and by. and some pie in the sky when you die kind of stuff, right? So eventually we're going to get there. So eventually we're going to get to a world without police. I mean, obviously it's a different, talking about two different things, different stakes. But it's the same kind of it's that same kind of like one day kind of stuff like that. Promise it tomorrow, kind of language. So that's something to be mindful of. The fact that so many people want to have the police defunded is great. I mean, like the word defunding though is kind of interesting though, because like, what do you mean by defund? Do you mean like fully defund? I mean, like does that mean like abolish? Does that mean get rid of, or does that mean you want them just to like take up less of the city budget, right? Like Garcetti got a lot of press and a lot of praise for cutting so like $300 million out of the police budget. That like sounds huge. That's like, oh my god, right? But then you find out that the police budget is in the billions. So it's not like that's not as drastic as you think it is, because the police budget is so overwhelming. That's not they're not the numbers you think they are. So was that defunding? Like is taking a little bit of money out defunding? So like if I stop you from doing this, if I stop you from stealing cars, is that defunding? If I stop you from doing asset forfeiture, is that defunding? I mean, the level of abuse that the police get away with, and not even things that are illegal, things that are completely legal. If you stop some of these like abusive practices, would that qualify as defunding? I mean, we're no longer gonna do asset forfeiture of your home, but we're gonna still keep stealing your cars. Like, is that defunding? I mean, like, what do we mean by defunding? It's one of these kind of like vague words. I mean, like, what? I don't know. I mean, I think I want to like stay in acknowledge the positive motion of the people in the street making these demands, but how the state will react is a different question.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, do you expect there to be different kinds of gains from the movement that has come now? Or, I mean, because I mean, obviously these stories aren't new stories, right? I mean, we've been seeing these nonstop for many years, right?
Well, what I'm really glad about is I think that a lot of what came out of before Rodney King, Rampart scandal, when that came out and that got exposed, there was a big thing about like the LAPD needed to fix itself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They get hit with a consent decree, and now the Los Angeles PD more resembles the city of Los Angeles, right, in terms of the demographic of the cops, and that hasn't changed anything. So I'm really glad that the conversation has moved away from we need the cops to look like us.
Right.
Didn't do a goddamn thing. So I'm glad that it's no longer that you haven't seen that kind of conversation arise.
Hey, but hey, they're kneeling, Matt. Okay, that's
Well, actually, how I see that whole that racial aspect, like that the cops should look like us, is that like it's almost like a false positive, because for sure that if you're like, say, Santa Ana, it's like a largely Latino city, but then let's say I don't know if that's the case now, but at some point most of the cops were white, right? That's bad, right? But changing that doesn't make it healthy necessarily. You know what I'm saying? You just removed a symptom. But if you still have all this other corruption, you still have other symptoms of the problem. Right?
It's identity politics. It's like, all we need to do is elect brown people or women or whatever, and assuming that in and of itself is going to change the culture. It's not, right?
No. And I mean, like, it's not going to whatever. And like, there's no like, and it's a myth that like there's no sadists in our population or in any population. There are sadistic people in every demographic, and those are the people that become cops. The people that become cops are the people that like burn ants with magnifying glasses. Like that's who that's who grows up and becomes a cop. So I mean, like I don't know what we're talking about here. What I'm saying? Like so like yeah.
People that came back from war and needed a job, and so I talked to somebody recently. It's like a lot of people they're ex-military folks, so come back home with PTSD. I mean, you could look at statistics and at the amount of alcoholism or like wife battery, and things of that nature. it comes to the police department. So it's like they have a chip on the shoulder, and like they're looking to like it's assumed, as Trump said, like impose their dominance on the world.
Did you see that video of that came out? It was a video that came out recently of the police union, like uh, uh, in LA, just like talking all kinds of crap about Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement in general.
No.
It was horrific. It was like like it really, you see that these are like death squads. You know what I mean? Like, and it's one thing when you meet them one-on-one, you meet a police officer one-on-one. When you see them on their own, by themselves, talking to themselves, giving themselves a pep rally, getting themselves excited to go out there and meet the day. When you see them in their team meetings, right? It's like, it's real death squad culture. It's real like, we're the ones out there, taking care of the scum. And like it's like a real like, it's real like it's a real death squad culture. And so like that's it is what it is. And you get this picture of them differently. You get the picture of them constantly on television as just regular people who are, whatever. And maybe at one time they were regular people. I tend to believe that there are people who grew up with magnifying glasses burning ants. I mean, that's my tip. That's my opinion. But I can't scientifically.
The cat's tails and stuff.
Yeah. I can't prove that, but that's just my opinion. But I can
Chucking
say
kids
that,
in the lockers. Give me my lunch.
Exactly. Yeah. These are people like giving people swirlies and stuff. But I can say that that's just my opinion. But I can say what I do know is whatever they were at one other point in time in life, what they become, and when they group together, and then you get the group psychology of what they're doing. It becomes, again, like there's no other way to put it. It becomes like this kind of like a death cult. They really get together, and they're just extremely, extremely violent and extremely and just beating their chest, with the right to take life, and that's how they perceive the world, and that's how they move through the world. And so like this idea that like you're gonna find some kind of compromise, or you're gonna find some kind of like way of doing anything. No, these people, that's not the culture they inculcate. They don't. You see people like having these like horrific, like NYPD with they're wearing the shirts being "I can breathe," and you're like, how could people be such monsters? Well, on an individual level, it would probably be difficult to be that level of a monster, but it's because they have each other that they're able to rise to such levels of monstrosity. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
They live in a monstrous, murderous bubble where they like self-confirm who and what they are as good and as virtuous. They don't see themselves as killers. They don't see themselves as like whatever. They see themselves as the line in the sand, and they encourage each other to see themselves as that, and they get it's a death cult. And that's not to say in a sympathetic, like on an individual level, like, oh, like you got to understand like what happens to a person's brain. I'm just trying to understand it like scientifically. Like, this is like, if you want to know how people could get like that, stop thinking about that as an individual. That's not an individual person. That is a member of a death cult.
Yeah, a member of a gang. And it's like there's different things, right? The culture, the blue line. I mean, it's like that's like mafia status. Like everybody, like nobody, like like break rank. Like that's how they do in jail and stuff. So, so that culture is really problematic. But I mean, it's like we do need police. There's mafias. There is drug dealers. There's El Chapos. There's people that are raping and are killing, and I don't want to deal with them. And our community is not ready to deal with that. So we do need some kind of public servants that are
there
not.
Needs to be some type of way to.
It's like the monetization of the police departments. It's like, let's go after and give tickets to all these people for these small infractions, and that's the it's like capitalism driven, right? Like, let's.
There needs to be something, some kind of way of reconciling wrongs done that exist outside of the person that did the wrong. Right? Someone causes. Steals from you, someone physically harms you, someone does these things. There needs to be a way of settling those accounts in society, right? And making this right, and that we're not just living in a world where the most violent or the people most willing to do violence can just dominate everyone. Of course, that's true. But that's not what we have in this society, and there's no way we're going to have a just police force, as it were, in this society that we live in. It's just not going to. It's never going to happen. So to call for, you're not going to fix the police force unless you fix the society in which they operate. It's just never going to happen. So, I don't want to sound like so revolutionary or more revolutionary than now, or say that like all these efforts are nothing but a bunch of petty bourgeois nonsense, or people are. I don't want to sound. I'm not trying to sound like that at all. I mean, the things that people are doing is great. I mean, if you can get, like, for instance, I know that you've had Gabby and Carolyn on many times. The work they did to get rid of gang injunctions. That's great. That's a material benefit to people's lives. People fighting against the database. That's great. People fighting right now to get, like, even this victory with Garcetti. I mean, okay, well, it's it's kind of hollow, but at the same time, that is 300 million less. That's a few less batons on the street. Like, okay, that's good. I mean, the fact that people are winning victories is good. Should they be bigger? Yes. Should we dream bigger? Yes. Should we, like, keep fighting for things way bigger than what they give us? Absolutely. But victories against things like asset forfeiture, victories against things like gang injunctions, victories, things like that, those matter, and they're very important. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying like that. But if we're talking about the whole enchilada, we're talking about the whole big thing, the big picture, we're never going to have a society where that's free of police brutality, so long as we have a society where there are prisons. We're never going to have a society free of police brutality so long as we live in a society that bombs other countries. We're never going to have free of police brutality in a city where there are people who sleep in the streets. That's never going to happen. So, I mean, the whole thing has to get fixed in order for us not to think about these death squads running around the cities.
Absolutely, and I'll mention that, like, the amount of accountability that's been happening recently, where I'm actually hearing about police officers being charged or, like, suspended or fired. Like, I have never, I've never remembered in recent time this amount of accountability. I mean, I don't know if you saw that video of that 75-year-old man went viral as well.
Yeah,
got pushed, like, cracked his head open, like, and people were just walking by him. It's like, that was.
And so they leave him bleeding out the ear. And then I saw the mayor of Buffalo come in and defend that. And he came on and said, essentially, this guy's bleeding out the ear, but he was an agitator. He called him an agitator. Like, was he an inside agitator or was he an outside agitator? Which one was it? But, like, so he called this guy an agitator and a known agitator at that, because it turns out this guy's an anti-war activist, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so they throw him on the ground. He's bleeding out his ear, and there's, like, some suspensions, and so the whole, like, department threatens to walk. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and again, the whole department threatened to walk because they demand the right to assault old men. They demand the right to assault the elderly.
They got suspended first without pay, and now they're charged. Two of the cops.
Well, no, I mean, again, that's good, and I think that's a result of all the unrest, right?
Correct.
I think that's a result of the unrest. But, like, I think that so that's why I think the unrest is good. I mean, like, I remember, I think it was Robin D.G. Kelly. He wrote of Watts, in the 60s, right? He wrote of Watts, don't look at what they destroyed, look at what they built, right? In terms of that. So it meant, like, what he was talking about was all this public infrastructure that got funneled into Watts in the following of the rebellion. All these public infrastructure that got funneled into, Black LA more generally, not just Watts, as a result of that, right? So the reality is that, riots, rebellions, whatever you want to call them, they work. I mean, when that happens, they work. So if you penalize, like, if you're going to kill people, it's going to be seen on camera, it's going to go around the world, there is a consequence to that action. There are penalties for that. Then the system itself is forced to fire people and prosecute them, etc. What more they can be forced to, I don't know. But, like, the fact of the matter is, it does force a response. People's response forces the state to respond, forces them to whatever. I can guarantee you, had there not been rebellions, had there not been those things, you would not see these prosecutions. Had these rebellions not happened, you'd also not see the Democrats, like, dressed in kente cloth. Like, had this kind of been swept under the rug, they wouldn't be, taking, Nancy Pelosi wouldn't be standing with her hands on her hips, in African garb. So it's not all positive.
Or all of them
like,
taking a knee at the Congress today.
That was horrible. I mean, that's just the most hypocritical, just horrible things. I mean, when I think about Joe Biden talking about shooting people in the legs, you think about the history of Joe Biden. I mean, no, okay. You know that Donald Trump in November talked about shooting migrants in the legs, right? And so now you have Joe Biden talking about shooting people in the legs. So essentially, 2020 is it's the election of who will shoot you in the legs.
Yeah,
blue
which demented rapist will shoot you in the legs?
Yeah, exactly. Which demented rapist is going to shoot you in the legs? Which of these creeps, these gropers is going to shoot you in the legs, right? And that's kind of like that's what we're looking at in terms of what the official system has to offer.
Yeah.
But there's a power stronger than that. That's the power of the people in motion. And so I think that these spontaneous rebellions, I shouldn't say spontaneous, people organize them. So I mean, things don't just happen, people do them. So these movements and these things, they very much, in very many ways, they force a response from the state, and that's good. But in terms of like the big solution, it's going to require a lot more than that. It's going to require organization. It's going to require people who can organize and going to require people can organize and carry forth demands and make executable actions should they not be met. I mean that's what's going to really that's what's really going to mean it's going to
absolutely
it's that big stuff. It's that revolution stuff, right?
Yeah. Big time
transformative stuff.
Yeah, Matt, this reminds me of one of my favorite public comments ever heard at Santa Ana City Council, and it was about some development thing. But someone came up and said, I wish you would just do the right thing here so I could go home, so I didn't have to be here. But think about why that's a problem, right? Because if you're not in the room, they will go against your interests. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, oh, they're going to fix the police, then we can go home. It's like what you're saying. We need sustained efforts, organizations, parallel infrastructure of the nature you're talking about. That's people-oriented. That can combat this. Right?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to necessarily go through the doors of the nonprofit or union, sector or electoral politics. Like at least starting off to at the end of the day, these people that are elected, they get to vote what to do with our tax money and whether or not to overfund the police or pay for their lawsuits when they maim or kill our people, and so on and so forth. But I based on my experience and what I've seen, like from the Occupy movement, like 95%, it's easy to march and it's easy to be a part of like something that's exciting and take the mic and like do all this.
Funny.
But long term, consistent and committed and strategic organizing that leads to like long term that takes a different level that I would say, out of the Occupy movement, 5% of the people that were participated maybe got, long term engaged. But by the most part, folks went home, and I just hope that doesn't happen this time around. I hope that
was really
channeled into for long term.
Was really great was I remember doing a march in Santa Ana. I think I opened it or something, and it might have been a May Day march. I'm not sure, but we were marching, and then we went to the police brutality where someone had been shot, and the cops were there to intimidate everybody. And they were on horseback, and the horse took a big old dump.
Oh yeah!
And the cop had to get off the horse and clean it up in front of everyone.
That happened? They usually just leave it there. I remember that.
No, he got off because he was surrounded by the rest of them, and maybe there's some like city like beautify ordinance or who knows, right? But he had to actually get off his horse and clean it up in front of everybody. So you're trying to intimidate me, but now I'm watching you clean the horse.
I remember
that was my favorite Santa Ana moment. That's my favorite Santa Ana moment period, actually.
Yeah, I missed that. That would have been my favorite too. No, I remember
You were there. You were like giving a speech though. You're feeling yourself.
Yeah, you have the mic.
I remember like them bringing their horses through Noche de Altares one year. and they just like crapped all over our festival, and people were walking on top of it, and it just like spread all over. I'm like, you disrespectful fucks. Like, but these are the types of things that they do. But yeah, I think, I don't know, like, the conversation last week and the conversation ongoing, is like, how does this translate into like, systemic change on the local level, right? I mean, we haven't seen Anaheim and Santana taking a knee, and nor will they anytime soon. And Santana and Anaheim have a really high death rate as far as like, like deaths per, per population, right? So, we're battling this, and we have been battling. So I kind of, not to say ride the coattails, but really just channel a lot of this young energy in towards really having significant change, especially in the cities like Santana, where the POA has so much power and buys politicians to get more money, bigger raises, and really shortchanging the community. So the conversation about being more proactive when it comes to trying to fight against crime is really great, given that what we've experienced has been the criminalization of young, young people of color. So I'm hopeful, and so I'm ready to hopefully see that this changes. But as I posted today, the cynic in me says that once the festivals and the sports and the bars start to open up, and folks will be like, okay, well, that was fun. Let me go back to my regularly scheduled program for this here summer 2020. So, but
well, I don't think that's I think, of course, it's going to happen. I don't think that's like I don't think you need to be Nostradamus to see that. But I also think that like that, like it's a percentage game. Like, how many of these people are going to stick around? How many people are going to stick around and do something after the event, right? If you say it's 5%, okay. Well, how many people participated in this versus the Occupy movement? How many people participated in this versus several other things, right? So let's say 5% stick around. If this involved millions upon millions of people, then that's hundreds of thousands, right? So that's significant.
Yeah.
So let's say the people that would stick around and do anything is 5%. It's just always 5%. It's static. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot more people that you as an individual will ever know, or I will ever know as an individual, know well, anyways. And so like that's a lot of people to organize with. So there's a lot of work to be done. So there's really nothing to be cynical about. 5%
a lot of laborers
is the number. So that's a lot of work.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is not the time to be cynical. It's a time to like count your blessings and see the glass half full. And so yeah, I think then it behooves us, and it's contingent upon us as people that have been around for a minute, not to like be ageist and patronize and be like all right kids, like get under my wing, like let me show you how it's done, but being really able to develop their critical thinking and to politicizing themselves, because you have to read, you have to like learn, and you have to go through stuff and experience it for you to really gain like a deep understanding about these issues and understanding how things change and don't change. So I mean, this election season, for as much as like you would say like voting in and of itself doesn't change things, but on the local level especially, like it has a lot to do with whether or not we're going to be able to make any kind of change to raises, salaries, and accountability.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just make a point that I've been thinking about is that regardless of the path you take to tackle public safety problems, like say you made a Black Panther style public safety group as a grassroots effort, or you lobby your federal or state legislator, or no matter where you go, you'll always come up against the local government because they have the monopoly pretty much on public safety, right? So it is interesting that even if you are more geared towards grassroots, get a little local government under your belt, because they own public safety in your city. So you know what I'm saying? You will contend with them even if you take a grassroots approach. So just a thought there.
Matt, I want to hear some of your book, brother. Like, I want the world and our viewers to experience the magic of Matt Sedillo. So, yeah, there is a lot that you can read from. So maybe you can pick a couple to share with us?
Okay, you want a couple? All right. All right. This one is called. I'll do Pilgrim. Some are born in summer homes and palatial groves where pain was only to ever unfold from the pages of secret gardens read from groves, but not I. See, I come from the stock of star-eyed astronauts who greet the night sky with big dreams and wide eyes, always running down the Devil's Highway through occupied America, all the way back to house on Mango Street. All the books you want to read. There's a handball off the back wall of a panaderia born east of the river, post Mendez versus Westminster, one generation with red lines and diplomas that were signed at those dreams. And that skin need not apply. See, I come from struggle. And if my story offends you, it is only because you made the mistake of seeking your reflection in my self-portrait. See this? Well, it's going to be about you. Someone born in the Common Core, whose reflected faces grace the pages of doctrines discovered and ages to be explored. World hardships crash against new shores, New England, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York. For others, pushed off Turtle Island. Aslan, do not call this brown-skinned immigrant. Child of the sun. Son of the conquest, Mexicano blood running through the veins east side of Los Angeles. Do not tell him your native tongue the song will best be sung. Do not tell me who I am. Because I was raised just like you. Miseducated in some of those very same schools off lessons and legends of honest Indians and Christian pilgrims and a nation of immigrants all united in freedom that isn't until they pull aside my white friend pointed directly at me and says, Sky, I judge you by the company you keep. You spend your time with this. And that same old story, 1846. The Adventures of Uncle Sam, the stick-up man, a wetback. Show me your papers, now give me your labor. The melting pot was never made for the hands to clean it. The American dream has always come at the expense of those who tucked it in. You don't know that. You don't teach it. They'll write you a book, but you won't read it, so you know this is about you. In 1492, and the Treaty of Guadalupe, and California missions and Arizona schools, these racists that try to race us and raise their kids in cities that bear our names. So you can learn some mistakes from Ferdinand to Minuteman, from Arpaio to Alamo, from Bobo Budio, so like the Indian that lives in me from 1868 to 1943 and try to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Canadian mines, Lino strike the Pandeala, Rizapata, or Kimureta, that's Agalitas, Brown Berezi, Zapatistas, Richard Nixon, third Napoleon, from Peckinpah to Houston, from Rosa Republic to Christopher Columbus, all the way down to Donald fucking Trump. We didn't cross the borders. The borders crossed us. Who you calling immigrant? Pilgrim.
Woo!
Ow!
Damn. Hey, that was awesome. Hey, I don't know if you memorized all of them, but La Reina.
All right.
Yeah.
The French full of abuelas with his grandkids in Spanglish under the watchful eye of them of the Virgin of Jesus. Make a village out of a duplex raised Catholic, but the roots are indigenous. 7 generations of family extension all growing one plot. Hand-me-downs under shared rules, rooms, and reflections. In la quech, porque mi casa es tu casa, and that's family promises, that's family living. That's palabra. Light a candle. Burn some sage, pick your altar side of the cross. The sound of the contra prayers lifts the 4 directions, that's culture. Not contradiction. Folks in the back, they fight for the living, fight for teen, hail from the rowdy section of Dodger Stadium, but the hearts still burn with fire from that Chavez ravine, and here is home for Lorena. At 54 cents on the dollar, America's most exploited worker. Neglected, disrespected, underrepresented, presumed incompetent. If she lives life as expected, she'll be labeled statistic. If she managed to outpace them threatened, they will blame her for a bit of action, but either way, they will not see her. They will demand her labor, paid and unpaid, smiling, her eyes humbled, her mouth silent. Lay the river. Cities past, present, and future. The Queen of Angels. Invisible to those who float. Through canyons, lagoons, and cemeteries, whitewashing adobe, through a series of fevered dreams connected by a bridge called her back, those make demands. The story is told to bury the past, the ones that serve to remind her that she works for them, that she is lucky to even have a job here in el pueblo. Nuestra Señora, la Reina de los Ángeles del Rio, por 5 hours, they call it La La Land. And since the 80s with the pueblo, 1890s, the brick house of Montebello built one again, only beaten and shot. One for no Mexicans, no dogs, only set of rules, only set of schools, only written out of the history of a city we found as we are priced out of the homes of our mothers. Yet more and more, greater Los Angeles suddenly discovered. And this is a struggle of our forebears. When profan historia y tierras victorias, siempre the struggle is real. La lucha sigue, la reina de Los Angeles on front lines of every fight, holding it down, holding the better half of the sky, fighting education, fighting for tenants' rights, fighting la migra y la jura, cause fuck the police, ching la ice, fighting for dignity, hers and ours, all the damn time, proud and brown and brown and proud of the hearts and heads, the backbone, these very Smiths, and we throw two fingers up, we say fuck Donald Trump. That's not identity politics, that's a cry of the proletariat at 54 cents on the dollar. She is the face of it. So when you see her, push the mother's shoulders, locked behind cash, raising the third, fourth, fifth, shift to the oppressed, show some respect, bow your head, bend the knee, all hail la reina, the once and future queen.
Woo! Ow! Damn, that was powerful, brother. Yeah, I like that. I don't know if you wanted to share another of your choice.
Sure. Just do this one. Los Angeles, City of Pigs, King of Cages. Database, the Furman Tapes, the Ayers Report, Daryl Gates, Tom Bradley, Lee Baca, Willie Parker, Red Lines, Red Squads, Ramparts, Rodney King, the Thin Blue Line, and all-white Jerry Mercer, Metropolis, the Kills for Appearances, Channel Moratorium, 84 Olympics, Crash, the Battering Ram, Crack, CIA, Twin Towers, Operation Hammer, Safe City, La Loma, Bishop Alverde, Arcadia, Los Angeles City, Designed to be Divided, Postcard Paradise, Gentleman's Apartheid, Service and Protection, 41st and Central, SWAT, Watts, Sleepy Lagoon, Open Shop, Open Season, The Killer of Children, Take the Shot. They were sworn to protect us we serve. As they're moving targets, they're bleeding borders, they're open frontier, the neighborhood threats, they shoot us as we run, as they shoot us, 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 as we run. Jesse Romero was 14 years old, murdered by the LAPD. Los Angeles, City of Pigs, King of Cages.
Yeah, brother. Woo. Woo, 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 woo. I could like keep listening to Matt Sedillo. Like he like rages from me. I channel my inner Matt Sedillo when I rage.
He is vengeance. So
Damn.
You heard it.
Sedillo is vengeance, the one we've been waiting for. That's powerful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. You want to do one more? Or?
Sure. I'll do the title poem. I'll explain why. So a lot of people like ask me why it's called Mowing Leaves of Grass. Like, what's that all about? Like for people who don't know, Leaves of Grass is a book by Walt Whitman, and it's considered like kind of the preeminent piece of American poetry, one of the preeminent pieces of American literature in general. But Walt Whitman was also someone that said, "What is miserable and inefficient Mexico is the grand mission of people in the New World with a noble race." Right. So that's something he said. He had some other words there too, but that's the core content of what he said. And he was a big proponent of the Mexican-American War. He was a big proponent of Manifest Destiny. And so I am of the opinion that Walt Whitman was a very, very, very talented guy, but he hated Mexicans, so fuck him. And I'm also very talented, so read my shit instead. That's my opinion. So here we go. This is a poem called Mowing Leaves of Grass. I am the Asia-ridden vengeance of Alvaro Valdez, the best laid plans of Modesta, the reckoning, Santa Cruz, San Isidro, Bisbee, Chandler, Porvenir, the blood, sweat, and tears of all that I refuse to forget. I am the unpaid debt. No sidekick, no subplot, no mascot, no ethnic study. The universe I embody, the ground above me, the sky beneath my feet. Marching las calles, las reyes, a circular calendar, sleepy, ni siquiera si vera, past, future, in the present, in la catch, all at once was the moment. I am you, you are me, and we are two clenched fists that still lit fire, sacred kept, the final breath called last fighting Aztec, laughing in the face of death, the blade of El Pachuco guarding the temple steps, the strength of memory, the promise of tomorrow. Yo soy Chicano, Chicano soy, el me lleves, el Chicano voy. They want you things important. Critical to your rehabilitation for the way in which you entered this world. Read Thomas Jefferson, also get pregnant. Standards and practices. Curriculum and instruction, youth, the product of public education, do not interrupt. Where you've been cuffed, face first to pavement like your father, your grandfather, your mother, your nina, your tío, so you learn your lesson. It's not personal. It's all you people. So don't get mad. Don't be hurt. Don't make this political. It's economic. Objective. The law of self-interest, we let you in, will become of the canon, the classics, Alexander, Napoleon, Hoole, Shell, the wit and wisdom, Ben Franklin, Shelley, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Walt Whitman, from the Palmanic starting what was miserable, inefficient Mexico to the grand mission, the new world, the noble race. You fought. You lost. You don't get to define this. It's not racism. It's progress. Providence, and God willing, you filthy mongrels, it is just the way it is. And look at you. I don't see color. I see labor. See cops and robbers, guards and convicts, institutions of correction, schools that look like prisons, caged apartments where the cost of living, cost of being brown is high as wages of rent. Forget your savage tongue, old teachers will bust. American love, spoon feed you spicks, freedom of speech, so then take a joke and speak to authority. I'll show you who you are in a book. You believe it, so said it, now you read it, and who you question the canon, the classics. Lowry, Kerouac, walk out in the great white brilliance of Garfield, Roosevelt, Lincoln. Now listen, it's important. The universe is a muralist. The cosmos, our self-portrait. Starring Curandera, a danzante, a poet, laureate, a stylist, a mechanic, the barrio dandy, cruising the rings of sadness, the travel tips of Torres, Carrasco, tearing the curtain in Union Station, Joaquin, returning triumphant, marching through halls of Tucson, mowing down leaves of grass, fuck Walt Whitman. This is our LeBeau dedication to Frida, Selena, Cantinflas, Luis Rodriguez, Valdez, Sorana, Sandra Anzandua, the mighty Quinn, to all that we are and all that we've been through, lifetimes and timelines, galaxies and dimensions of pride, pain and resistance, and Gothic are the solar showers and the days of living music when the people of the sun were dancing to Tuna Valenzuela, La Luna was a calavera as the ancestors welcomed the future with the circular council. I am you, you are me, sitting at a desk, looking to the stars, searching for the end to a poem never began. It always was, and forever shall be.
Woo! Man, that one's good. I was like reading along, and that helped. Which is like the best advertisement to get this book when Matt Sedillo,
I mean,
battle raps.
There you go.
Check this book out.
Yeah. So you gotta check it out, because I mean the reality is that like a lot of people know that I'm good, but nobody knows how good I really am. You don't know how good I really am till you get that book. Because you can see the depth and the amount of his history condensed into like the little kind of aspect, and even people who like my stuff, even people who are history buffs, are like, hey man, that's really good. Like, you don't really know, because I talk fast, because I'm going really quickly, right? So if you actually looked at it, you get to read it and sit there with a Google, you'll be like, holy crap, like this guy really did that, I mean, I'm not saying this like a braggadocious kind of way. I'm not saying this in any kind of like arrogance or anything like that. It is what it is, man. It's
2020 Matt Sedillo, done humble.
Yeah.
I know. It's not.
Just
because it's a lie when people are humble. Like when they're humble in a way that's not
fake
even.
humility.
I mean, yeah, it's fake humility. I would be fake humble if I were to say that this book isn't great, because like I put so much work into it. Spent so many hours researching things. Like I'll watch like 3 hours of like documentary for like 2 lines. I'll read like 60 pages of text and I'll only get like a 1 line out of it. I mean, like there's so much work that goes into this, and it would be disrespectful to those hours that I put in to the research to be dishonest about it. Yeah, there's a reason why Greg Powell says I'm the best political poet in America. There's a reason why Paul Ortiz called me the poet laureate of struggle. There's a reason, and that reason is the amount of research I put in and the techniques I employ. I mean, like this shit's great. I mean, like I don't know what the objective standard is, but I mean, when we're talking about political poetry, yeah, I'm the cream of the crop, man.
You're the GOAT, the Michael Jordan of political.
Well, I'm still, I mean, like that we'll see when it's all said and done. But like as of now, yeah, it is what it is, man. And I, I'm proud of myself.
Don't even say Michael Jordan though, because remember, you compete with the unborn and the dead.
That's right.
So,
that's right. That's me. I compete with the living, the dead, and the unborn. Yeah.
So come at me. Yeah, but come on.
Come at me, eternity.
This man is trying to sell a goddamn book, okay? What is he going to do? Say,
goddamn mortals.
You sell it.
Yeah, exactly. What am I going to say? I'm trying to sell something here. And no, but it really is. It really is.
No, it's a really, really good book. Definitely. And a lot of, like you said, it's a history lesson. At the same time, it's a plea for a cry for revolution and a plea to humanity to take up, this mantle. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. Matt, hardest working, poet in the business, and and recently with your podcast, you've really shown, just all the connections and all the people that have crossed paths with you, and this is the it's like the modern illuminary, revolution of thought leaders and artists and all sorts of people that are from LA and from all over in here in Southern California that are really kind of pushing the envelope and teaching at the same time edutainment as they call it. So yeah, you're the GOAT in my book, if that says anything.
You have a book, Jose? I thought he had the book. I'm getting confused here.
Like, all right, that's enough of that. Yeah, book of like greatest poets, Matt Sedillo, Mowing Leaves of Grass. Check it out. Where can people buy it or find it or
Well, I got my own personal stash. They came in, a couple hundred came in, so I need to sell those. So they can hit me up directly if they want. But if not, you can find it at flowersongpress.com. If that's too difficult for you, you can go to Amazon. That's your last resort, though. You can go to Walmart too. They sell them at Walmart. They sell them at Walmart.com and Amazon.com. Both.
Gotta get that Skrilla, man. Don't do that.
The Waltons don't need any more money, and neither does Jeff Bezos. So, do a little bit of research. Go to the website and get it if you don't want to contact me directly. But if you want, the best thing would be to contact me directly because I get that money directly. So, because I already bought them, so I got them, so I need to sell them now. So,
yeah. Holler at your boy Matt Sedillo on Facebook or
Does Dylan want to buy a book?
Yeah, I'll buy a book.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell books to Edgar in a minute too.
Hells yeah.
Yeah, he already sold one to Ben. He's on a rampage. No shame in the game. That's Matt.
Buy a book 2020.
That's right.
Don't vote
authors.
Buy a book. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that actually. I like that. Literacy 2020.
Big time.
Right on. All right, Matt. Well, this conversation has been awesome. Had a lot of folks engaging. So I can't wait to see what's next for you down the line. I'm sure more books. Once the quarantine's over, more public appearances. More college tours and and hopefully. And I think that's part of the conversation we were having earlier, being able to teach and educate a next generation of future Matt Sedillo excellence. Yeah. To come out of the young people that are really engaged in this moment and are looking for outlets, and definitely the poetry and the art form is one that continue to cultivate and empower people as they share their talents and their words and their truth to the world. So, all right. Well, thanks once again, Matt Sedillo. Look for him on Facebook. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for being on the show. Good, sir. Until next time.
He'll see you in the next room in 17 seconds. Good times.
So you can. I'm trying to get myself out of here.
You don't kick our guest out like that.
You can leave now.
Is that how we treat our guests? You always want to have just one-on-one time at the end.
What?
I know.
I don't get one-on-one time with you, Dylan. Yeah. So I got to do what I can, and if it has to happen on this show, in front of it for the world, then that's what's going to be.
Okay. Because I have something really serious
to talk about. My bro love for you.
Yeah. No, we have to have a serious personal conversation about a conflict between us. Right now. Yeah.
Well, folks, that's our show. Thanks so much.
No, nothing serious.
Last words or final thoughts from Dylan Thompson. Go.
My final thoughts are that a few days ago, the SAPD were here with Telemundo filming propaganda because they got some money from the government to hire some police. So they're like, we do community policing. See, we filmed it. And they're like,
God, I saw that video.
Oh, you did? Oh my God, I want to see that, man. Because I went out of my apartment and I went to go talk to one of the officers, and I'm like, excuse me, like what exactly are you guys filming today? And he just told me that. And I'm like, okay. And like I was trying to give this guy a history lesson about POA bankrolling our elections and like all the pot shop raid police that were fired and rehired after the coup of Carlos Rojas and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, I don't want to get political. You know, it got political when you were paid dues to a union that bankrolled my election. So yeah, you don't want to make it political. Stop paying your dues. That would make it not be political. Then we could talk. But until then, it's just dishonest. So,
big facts.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that I saw that, and it tried to paint this picture that Santa Ana Police Department is on the cutting edge, on the front lines of community policing because they actually like walk the beat and talk to the community. I'm like, what? Where?
I do, dude. I mean, yeah, I know it's annoying.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's especially annoying because I was involved with some forums in 2016, and the SAPD was supposed to produce some community survey to get input from the community. And then when they got the ball was in their court. They dropped it, and so I mean, I didn't really have a lot of hopes for them to implement a lot of things. But the good part of it was to show that they don't really give a rat's ass about any of that stuff. And then for them to come to any of these neighborhoods and film as if they do this well, it's like, don't you remember what Carlos Rojas said at that forum a few years ago? He's like, look, all we can do is reactive policing. We can't do all this fancy stuff you want to do. We have to do that well. That's their mentality. And then they want to film some propaganda. So, okay, I'm done complaining. But the officer, I give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he needs to be educated, and I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I'll just say that
the vast majority of I think the police don't live in this community, so they wouldn't know what exactly their membership dues are going towards, and how much of a piece of shit Jerry Serrano is, and what happened with the old police chief, and perhaps that person was new to to the force. So we're going to be having some guests on the show, I believe, of next week, if not the following week, where we're going to dig deep into this particular issue of what it looks like in Santa Ana, and what and the conversation around the raises, and the potential to tilt the scale away from over policing our communities, and and having them in our school in Santa Ana school districts, different than like any other district around here, I believe, and the bloated budget, and to be able to really figure out how the police can be willing to to renegotiate and have a better, balanced approach to the issue of crime in our community. We don't need more police. We need better policing, and we need proactive solutions like investing in youth and being able to have community policing and oversight with, ideally teeth that, with subpoena power and so on and so forth. So, at the moment where people are kneeling and, and attending marches and whatnot, we need some bold and courageous leadership, as much as, can be done with the current council, which is not promising at all. But that's why this upcoming election in Santa Ana is going to be so consequential, because if with the right people in those seats, potentially a new mayor, not potentially, a new mayor for the first time in 25 years, and new potential, fresh ideas and new people into this political landscape, then we can tilt the scale, because the conversation is already is there, and people from both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, want to make sure that that we are doing policing the right way, that ensures public safety while not promoting this extremely powerful and overarching politicking that particularly the Santa Ana Police Department and the Police Officer Association has waged locally. Case in point being the Ceci Iglesias recall, but so much other things, right?
Oh yeah.
And you're gonna love that, because as you mentioned, you were very much a part of that conversation around community policing. So that conversation has just gotten a Lance Armstrong steroid boost in the butt.
I hope so.
It's ready to go the full 9 yards.
The momentum's there, but it's going to take the people holding
Tour de France.
Yeah. Yeah, the momentum's there. I'm excited, but yeah, we need like oversight of our government, of the city council. Even.
Bigly.
You know what I'm saying? So.
Huge. All right.
Hugely.
Alfonso Alvarez says, I stopped speaking at council meetings because they weren't interested in research on community-oriented policing. Yeah. You know, and I mean, could we get rid of the contract with the police department at the Santa Ana Unified School Districts? I'd like to think so. I would love that. That would be great. That would significantly dent the school to prison pipeline and the need to continue to have. There's a reason why youth people, went out in droves in Santa Ana. They have them in their schools, they have them in their communities, and they're tired of it. We're tired of it, and everybody's tired of it. And so, God dang it, we need some serious change and and not just lip service. So that is what's happening. And with that, I want to thank everybody that tuned in for the first time or tuned in yet again for another episode. We have exciting news today because for this today, we are officially now going to be streaming live on YouTube, and also our audio. The audio is going to be available on Spotify and iTunes or Apple Store. I'm not really sure about all that technology, but yeah. So we're expanding our reach and getting out there in the different platforms that are available, not just Facebook Live, because I know a lot of folks want to just listen to us, as they're driving in their cars and whatnot. So so many different ways for you to get your weekly feed of Itz Happenin show.
Oh yeah.
Dylan Thompson and Jose Gloria.
Big time.
All right. I want to thank Edgar Silva for being an awesome audio video engineer. Thank Iron Lion Media, Iron Lion Studios. Hit us up if you want services around podcasting and recording musical and other types of things.
Media services.
Yeah, maybe Matt Sedillo can record his live version, live audio book version. That'd be rad.
Dude, connections have been made.
Okay. Alfonso said we have our own PD. Santa Ana Police is involved. All right. Well, we'll do more research on that. Figure out why, how.
I think he's just pointing out that the school district police is its own department, I think is what he's pointing out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, good times. Okay.
That must be fine then. I didn't think to say like the city council might not have any kind of role in that.
The school board probably does there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, indeed. So tune in next week, Monday nights, 9 p.m. and check us out. We're gonna drop some links later on for y'all to follow us on Spotify and YouTube and Apple and all that.
Napster.
Yeah, technology.
Netflix.
Thingies. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yahoo.
Hulu. HBO Max.
Local TV stations.
TikTok and Snapchat.
English stations in North Korea.
Univision and Telemundo.
A video recording in a bottle. Abandoned in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So, yeah, we're covering our fucking bases, guys. We got all sorts of shit for you guys. So enjoy.
All right. From Thompson. From John Thompson and Jose Gloria. Woo, woo, woo. And everybody at Itz Happenin family, we are signing off. It's happening.
Ooh, ooh.
Excellent.
Pop.
vida para no ver lo que es verdad. Te han engañado, no es libertad, lo que tú vives es vulgar. Ser un esclavo sin descansar mientras que el burgués se aprovecha de tus labores. Hay que luchar para vencer este sistema capital.